You're almost asleep, not quite dreaming, but close. That warm, heavy, sinking feeling. You're safe. You're lying completely still. Nothing in the room has moved. And then out of nowhere, your whole body flinches. Maybe your leg kicks, maybe your arms shoot out, and for a split second, you're absolutely certain you were falling. You weren't, you're in bed. You've been in bed the whole time. But your heart's pounding like you just caught yourself at the edge of a cliff. Here's the strange part. Almost everyone does this. Most of us over and over our whole lives. It even has a name. Scientists call it a hypnic jerk. And nobody fully agrees on why it happens. But the best explanation is a little unsettling. Because your body isn't glitching. Your body thinks you're falling out of a tree. Not a metaphor, an actual tree. The kind your ancestors slept in for millions of years before there were beds or floors or a couch to drool on. That jolt might be one of the oldest reflexes you own. A 20-million-year-old alarm still going off in a bedroom where there's nothing left to fall from. Stick around because the weirdest part isn't the jerk itself. It's the tiny lie your brain tells you a split second after. We saved that one for the end. Let's get one thing straight first, because it flips how you see this. That jerk isn't your body failing to fall asleep. It's an older part of you refusing to fall without checking first. And like most things about you, it isn't one clean story. It got built in layers. One layer is what actually happens in your brain in the last second before sleep. One is why falling of all things is the one danger that ancient part of you can't ignore. And the deepest layer is what your sleeping brain invents to explain the jolt after the fact. That last one is the part that'll stay with you. So let's climb back up into the trees to a time when falling asleep and falling were the same deadly problem. So let's slow the whole thing down to the last few seconds before you're gone. Falling asleep isn't a switch, it's a handover. All day, a system deep in your brainstem keeps you awake and alert. Think of it as the part of you that runs the lights. As you drift off, it starts powering down, room by room. Your heart slows, your breathing gets long and even, your muscles begin to let go. That letting go is the important part. Because to sleep, your body has to quietly switch off its own muscles. It powers you down on purpose, so you lie still instead of thrashing through the night. And most nights that shutdown is smooth, you never notice it. But sometimes the timing slips. The wake system and the sleep system overlap for a moment, both half on. And in that overlap, your brain picks up a strange signal. It feels your muscles suddenly going slack, all of them, at once. To a sleeping brain, one obvious thing makes a whole body go limp in an instant. You've lost your grip, you're falling. So it does the only thing a body can do while it's falling. It fires, hard. Every muscle it can reach all at once to grab something, anything. That's the kick, that's the flail. That's you lying safely in bed trying to catch a branch that isn't there. Your body running a rescue mission for a problem you don't have. And here's the detail that gives it all away. It happens most when you're overtired, stressed, or sleeping somewhere awkward. A chair, a plane, a desk. Exactly the situations where a long time ago, dozing off in the wrong spot could get you killed. Which leaves one question hanging. Your brain had 100 ways to misread a limp body. So why does it always jump straight to falling? For that, we have to leave the bedroom and climb. So climb. Go back far enough, past the first cities and the first fields, and your ancestors aren't on the ground at all. They're up in the trees. For tens of millions of years, that's where primates like us slept. Up in the branches, off the ground. And it was a good deal. The leopards and hyenas working the dark below mostly couldn't reach you up there. But safety's never free. It just changes the bill. On the ground, the danger was being eaten. In a tree, the danger was simpler and dumber. It was falling off. And a fall back then wasn't a cast and a week off work. It was a broken body in a world with no medicine and a lot of hungry animals watching. It didn't just hurt, it ended your line. So for a sleeping tree ape, one quiet threat outranked almost everything. Not the predator, gravity. And evolution's fix was elegant and a little paranoid. It wired in a reflex that never fully clocked out, not even in sleep. A part of the brain that kept one eye on your grip, your balance, the tension in your muscles. And the instant that tension vanished, the way it does when you start to fall, it threw every muscle into grabbing back on. Regrip now, questions later. That reflex kept your ancestors wedged in their branches night after night for millions of years. The ones born without it slipped and fell and never became anyone's ancestor. You come from the good grippers. And other apes still live this every night: a chimp, an orangutan, a gorilla. Each one builds a fresh nest in the trees before dark and sleeps holding on. They never had to give it up. But somewhere along the way, we did something they didn't. We came down. We started sleeping on the ground, flat, solid earth, with nothing to fall from and nothing to hold. The tree is gone, the branch is gone, the drop is gone. But the reflex is still in there, fully staffed, waiting for a slip that can't happen anymore. So it waits, and most nights nothing. Then every so often as you let go into sleep, it feels your grip disappear. And for one honest second, a 20-million-year-old part of you is sure you're back in the tree and the branch just gave way, which should be the end of it. A charming old glitch, case closed. Except it isn't, because this reflex does something a harmless leftover shouldn't. It gets stronger when you're stressed, when you're worn out, when you're sleeping somewhere new. Almost like it isn't just remembering the fall, like it's still on duty. And that's where this stops being about trees and starts being about something your brain is still doing tonight. So let's follow the reflex forward, out of the trees and into you. Because that grip check in your brain was never really about branches. Branches were just the first thing it learned to guard. Underneath, it's a simpler, older rule. When your body lets go, check that it's safe to. And that rule got wired straight into the part of you that watches for danger. Which is why the jerk isn't random. It has a pattern. It shows up most on the worst nights. The overtired ones, the stressed ones. The first night somewhere unfamiliar. Think about when that is. A strange room, a hard deadline, a body running on 4 hours of sleep. To your ancient wiring, those aren't just inconveniences, they're threat signals. New place, might not be safe. Exhausted, can't afford to be caught off guard. Stressed, something's wrong. And on nights like that, the part of you that keeps watch is reluctant to fully clock out. It hovers, half awake, one hand still on the switch, which means the handover into sleep gets rougher and the misfires come more often. The jerk isn't the guard failing. The jerk is the guard refusing to sit all the way down. And this got more important, not less, the day we climbed down. Because sleeping on open ground is far more exposed than sleeping in a tree. Out there, a body that fully switched off, in the open, all night, was a body that might not wake up. So the watchfulness stayed. It just changed what it was watching for. From don't fall to don't let go completely. That's the same reason a new hotel room keeps you up and the same reason you snap awake at 3 a.m. for no reason. It's one old system still doing its job in a body that no longer needs it to. But we're still not at the strangest part. Because so far this is just a jerk, a muscle, a misfire, a guard on edge. The truly odd thing is what your mind does with it in the half second after. It doesn't just wake you up, it hands you a story. You've felt this, even if you've never named it. The jerk hits and it doesn't arrive alone. It comes wrapped in a tiny, vivid flash. You missed a step. You slipped off a curb. The ground wasn't where you left it. A half-second dream of falling, perfectly timed to the kick. And here's the question that breaks people's brains a little. Which one came first? It feels obvious. You dreamed you were falling so your body flinched, cause then effect. But the timing doesn't work that way. The muscle jerk comes from a fast, primitive part of the brain. It fires almost instantly. The dream, the story, the missed step comes from slower machinery. The part that makes sense of things, which means the fall you remember didn't cause the jerk. The jerk came first. And then your sleeping brain, blindsided by a sudden jolt, went looking for a reason. And in a fraction of a second, it wrote one. It reached for the oldest explanation it had for a body lurching in the dark and served it back to you as a memory. You didn't dream a fall and flinch. You flinched, and your brain invented a fall to explain the flinch. A story built backward faster than you could notice to make a twitch feel like it made sense. Sit with that for a second. The part of you that's supposed to be resting just fabricated a small false memory in real time, and you believed it completely. That's not a bug in your sleep. That's your brain doing the one thing it can never stop doing, explaining you to yourself. So why do you jerk awake as you fall asleep? Not because you're stressed, though that doesn't help. Not because of the coffee, though that doesn't help either. You jerk awake because a piece of you never came down from the trees. A 20-million-year-old reflex, built to catch a falling ape, still standing guard over a body that sleeps on solid ground. The branch rotted away 100,000 centuries ago. The grip never did. So the next time you're drifting off and your whole body kicks and you snap back with your heart pounding over nothing, don't be annoyed with it. That flinch is a receipt. It's proof you come from an unbroken line of animals who, every single night for millions of years, did not fall. Every one of them held on, long enough to make the next one, all the way down to you. The tree is gone, the drop is gone, the danger's gone. But the grip is still there, quiet, loyal, ready, reaching one more time for a branch that isn't there. That's not a glitch. That's you still holding on. If you made it to the end, tell me one thing in the comments. When you jerk awake, do you ever see where you fell? A stair? A curb? A step? Tell me what your brain shows you.